Time now for
Wokewatch.
And this really is, of all the Wokewatch stories that we have done over the years, this is probably get over yourself. This is probably the one that tickles me the most, because the Daily Mail ran a headline yesterday that said, now National Trust rebrands Henry VIII a, quote, disabled king, end quote. And you sort of go, what? I mean, he was, wasn't he? His horse landed on him, an armoured horse, which, by the way, in those days were shire horses. You'd get the equivalent of a shire horse now in order to carry a fully armoured soldier into battle. He was 1536 off the top of my head when he fell off his armoured horse and the horse landed on top of him. A fully armoured shire horse landed on his legs, right? Therefore, he was disabled. And I don't know whether you know this because it doesn't pop up in history lessons very often. He often used a wheelchair. He was almost constantly on crutches or sticks, but wheelchairs. There's historical evidence that he often used wheelchairs as well. And this has upset the Daily Mail and their anti-woke agenda. As a young man and into middle age, his vigour was legendary. Henry VIII had 6 wives, picked a fight with the Pope, and was so fated as a sportsman that foreign ambassadors remarked on his prowess. But he has now been described as a disabled king by the National Trust, which has given him a, quote, woke, end quotes, rebranding. So we're going to have to rename the Paralympics the Woke Olympics, because if you have a terrible accident that leaves you disabled, apparently it's woke to describe you as disabled. This is the maddest story I have seen in it. I make a living looking for, well, I don't quite, but finding mad stories is a large part of my pleasure in the job that I do every day. That and mad callers. And this is the maddest story I can remember seeing since Wokewatch was invented. What do you say to someone who's had a terrible accident and ended up disabled? You say, excuse you, don't call yourself disabled. Don't be so woke. It's absolutely incredible. And they wheel out a couple of people to support their ludicrous position. Someone called Chris McGovern from the Campaign for Real Education says Henry was regarded as one of the fittest and most talented horsemen of his generation. In later life, he had a jousting accident and his girth grew. But for most of his life, he was admired for things that the National Trust is not highlighting, so they are distorting history. What? This is the Campaign for Real Education. And let me find someone else. No, it's the same bloke. They only got one quote. They are desperate to adopt a woke ideology to promote a political agenda. But Henry VIII is a bad example. So, man gets legs crushed by fully armoured horse and ends up using mobility aids, crutches, sticks, wheelchairs. His waist balloons, reportedly, from 32 inches to 52 inches. The ulcers on his legs were so unbearable that he lived his life in constant pain. But to call him disabled, that's woke. We're going to struggle to find a better example, aren't we, in the coming days? But I've got a tenor says we do.